Second umbrella. All right. There it is. All right. So, name is Julien. Thank you, Chris. This talk is it's called Random Access Memories. First of all, I'm losing my voice because I'm caught cold, so if I completely go, I'm going to ask some of you to come up here and tell stories. So, okay. Just a little bit about me. I hate saying this, but I got over 25 years of experience in the IT field. Makes me feel really, really old. My background is in pen testing. You'll see a lot of these stories about today is mostly around pen testing. There's also all kinds of assessments and things like that that I'll cover. But I'm not going to be able to cover everything that's in that box. And we'll talk a little bit about what that is all about. Sure. That's yeah, I'm not going to comment on that. So right now, I work as Director of InfoSec at Glasswall. I've got a few of my colleagues here giving support, and I want to thank them a lot to enable me to come and do these types of talks. And again, this one here, there's going to be a disclaimer and see what I'd say about that. I've worked in many highly regulated industries, which means that a lot of the stories I'm going to talk to you about today, they're in industries that are very, very interested in checking boxes and making sure that all the right things are being done. And there's at least a couple in there that you'll see that we check boxes just to check boxes and not to be more secure, which is going to be a good moral. As Chris talked about, I'm the founder of the Atlantic Cybersecurity Collective. I'm also on the advisory board of the Canadian Cybersecurity Network because, yeah, all of the above, just because it was supposed to be a multiple choice, but anyways, enough about me. Disclaimer, presentation here reflects my personal views and my research. It's not affiliated whatsoever with any companies that I work with at the moment, and I will also not name any companies unless the information that I'm going to be talking about is publicly available. Certain details may have been changed because of, I don't want to, I want to protect the privacy and confidentiality of all the parties involved. I've been on 200-300 engagements, so there may be people here that some of these stories touched. You can come talk to me afterwards or whatnot, but I will absolutely not name any names. All right, so how to play this game? Well, we're gonna have Blake walk around. There's little, I call them cards, but there are tiny little pieces of paper in there, and if you can find them, there's a lot of candy in there too, and if you want candy, you can pick some of it. It's my tickle trunk. So you're going to pick a card. Each story has about 10, 15 minutes, maybe less, maybe more. And you're going to listen to my story, and then you're going to pick another card. Every story is going to have a nice little moral to it. Hopefully you can learn a little bit about cybersecurity and the same thing and be entertained about crazy stories that are out there. If you get bored, I also put up some old school video games up there. So, all right. Who's our first? If you want candy, pick some candy. Let's go one at a time, Blake. Let's just do one at a time. Who's first? You are. All right. Pre-hacked. Nice. I wanted that one to come out. Yeah. So, as a pen tester, I was working for a pretty big multinational company, and they hired me to go in and do a pen test on their internal systems. I was mostly doing work for consulting for facing their clients, but they wanted me to do a pen test internally. So I got there, flew across the country, went in, started poking around. My first vulnerability scan, I find a very bizarre backdoor, I would say, installed in one of their systems. And come to find out that people had been there before me. These people were connected to all of their clients all across the world. We're looking at hopping into other clients' networks and things like that. The really funny part, not really funny, but the scary part was that as soon as I looked at everything, finally accessed this back door, and instead of giving me access to that system, I was really confused for a second because I was actually redirected straight into their Active Directory with full system, their domain controller with full system admin. Very scary. Now, I would like to say that that story ends there, but I go see the president of the company, he comes to my desk and looks at me and goes like, are you trying to make my life effing hard right now? And I looked at him and laughing. You know, it's like, yeah, I know, right? He goes like, no, I'm serious, it's Friday. Like, dude, you have hackers in your system. Like, it's not me. So I had to end up staying a couple of extra weeks. And I guess the moral of this story is that you may not be the first one there, and the executives are not always going to respond the same way that you do. One other thing. I'm not going to take questions because there's a lot of stories and a lot of stuff. I really want to get through that. Please come see me afterwards. We can talk about these things. I would love to take this concept and get everybody's stories and put up a blog post or a podcast or a book or something like that. It would be really cool. I know Evans must have some amazing stories. Where is he? Over there. All right, who's next?
Why try just use the Wi-Fi?
Yeah, why try? Just use the Wi-Fi. Again, pen testing consultant going to a business, they say, guess Wi-Fi is in scope, but don't worry about it. We have a pretty complex password, and it's completely segregated from the rest of segmented from the rest of the environment. So don't worry about it. You know, if you have time, just go ahead and poke at it. When a pen tester hears that, they go for it. Their very complicated password was 102938, whatever, you know the rest. I de-auth their session, grab the hash, cracked it in about 5 seconds, get on the Wi-Fi, start pinging. Yeah, it was not segmented. Within, I would say, within a day, I had full domain name access. Active Directory for anybody who's pen tested it. It's very easy to misconfigure, very easy to find a path domain name. Unless they have really, really good antivirus, and we're getting really good at bypassing antivirus. So, moral here, trust but verify. If you tell me that your network is fully segmented, I'm not going to trust you. I'm going to verify. I'm going to ping across. And that's why PCI DSS, when you're doing a pen test, one of the things they ask you to do is to really look all around the perimeter of your cardholder data and see if it is actually blocked. Because a lot of people don't really understand. Yeah, turn off ping. Can't ping. Yeah. Services are still there. I don't have my time. Right, Troy.
9:30 right now.
Troy, what do you have?
Privileged, but exposed.
Privileged but exposed. I may have to go over to my list. Oh yeah, privileged but exposed. So this was a very privileged user, but not in the sense of cybersecurity or IT. This privileged user had a lot of money. This was done as a personal project. Personal as in, I just got my $5 Shodan account and wanted to poke around. Which, by the way, Black Friday is coming up. If you want a $5 Shodan account, it's going to be out there very soon. Shodan is a search engine used to look for IoT devices that may be hanging out on the internet. Not just IoT devices, but most people use it. I had also learned the dark arts of botnet, which is an OT system, right? Botnet, very secure. It is not. It's got no authorization. If you tell it to do something, it won't even check if you're allowed to tell it to do something. It's going to do whatever you want it to do. So I found a whole bunch of botnet devices. I geotagged it for the Atlantic provinces and found. So when you do security research, you want to make sure that, oh, I crashed, perfect. So when you do security research, you want to make sure that, even better, sorry, I'll get to my story at some point. You can run this directly. Maybe. When you do security research, you want to make sure that when you're responsibly disclosing stuff, you want to make sure that it's real, right? That you're not looking at data that is done by Jack Sparrow or Tony Stark or things like that, right? Like fake data. So you kind of have to poke at it a little bit, and to be completely honest, you're towing a fine line of what's legal and what's not. But at the same time, I believe strongly in responsible disclosure. I believe strongly in good faith security research, that if I find something that exposes your data or somebody else's data or puts their business at risk, it's better to let them know that it's there than to just step away because you can't be sure that it's not just a honeypot or a test system. So in this case, I accessed one of the botnet devices and immediately lost my breath because I saw the name and I saw what it was, and it was Mr. Tony Stark's pool temperature and Mr. Tony Stark's bedroom temperature. It was not Tony Stark, but it was somebody that had a ton of money. So immediately stepped completely away, started going through my contacts, letting them know that I found this. Within like half a day, it was completely brought off the internet. But for a period of time, which I don't know how long, because as soon as I found it, it was gone away. But for a period of time, people could have changed the pool temperature in this person's house, which, again, trust but verify, right? If you have contractors coming in and working on your HVAC system at your company, they're working on your spa, right? Which I also found at some point. You want to make sure that it's not publicly exposed. You want to make sure that they do the right things. And that's why us here, cybersecurity practitioners, are extremely useful. We understand what can be done. Shocking? Shocking timing. A lot of people heard this story. Losing my voice. For a minute, we were running some physical pen tests, and I hired this person who was fairly not new to the field, but hadn't been practicing for a while. So being a really, really nice person, I said, well, you're going to try to break into this building. And he took it seriously, like very seriously. Didn't shave for a couple of weeks. Borrowed somebody's old rusted out van. He actually showed up with a ladder. He had a work order for an electrical company that he had printed out. He had actually created a website for this electrical company. And high-vis rolls up. I'm sitting there inside. I know that this is happening today. As he walks into the door with his ladder and his nice little, I'm an electrician, I'm gonna see if I can get into this building. I swear to God, the power goes out. Not planned. Had no clue this was happening. I knew he was gonna have the run of the place no matter what, but at this point, it was beautiful. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. He was up on ladders, looking up into the ceiling. He was going through boxes. For some reason, he was going through boxes. Like, who lets an electrician go through your stuff? They gave him a Wi-Fi password. They gave him an office. He took so many photos of USB sticks, like stuck in everything that he could get to. I guess at the end of the day, you do this a long time, these things are gonna happen. Like, these weird little coincidences are gonna happen, but the look on his face when the power went out, and I literally texted him, I was like, was this, like, did you know, like, go on the website and plan this right at the same time? Because I had no idea. Fell in love with it that day. I think he's still doing it up to a certain point. I can't do it. I get so nervous, my heart just wants to leap out of my chest. I feel bad for people that I'm trying to dupe and everything else. But this experience may have changed my mind too. Laugh was that. What was that? Laugh was that. This one I can name names because we actually disclosed it. It was just this past year, I believe. We were troubleshooting something for a client. I didn't know this, but when you do a SSO connection with Outlook desktop, it needs to proxy your username and password and create a web request to go to your SSO solution. It will actually spin up its own web server on 127.0.0.1 and serve that to you, and then you put it in and you use that web server to post your stuff. Well, AWS didn't, the WAF didn't really like that because it sounds a lot like a server-side request forgery, so that you're trying to get somebody outside, try to get inside of the network using a local address space, see what's happening. So it would put the 127.0.0.1 in the redirect, telling the website that once you're logged in, redirect here and do some funky stuff like that. So of course the AWS WAF was blocking that. And we fixed it fairly quickly, but curiosity, right? Like hacker mindset is, oh, I wonder what if, is this just a regex? Are they just looking for 127.0.0.1? I wonder what would happen if I put in the hex representation or the octal representation of that address. And sure enough, completely bypassed it. So ended up spinning up a fake SSRF vulnerable web service on AWS, showed that with the WAF that was there, I could completely bypass the WAF rule, do an SSRF in the octal representation of 169.254, 169.254, which is I'm getting deep into details here, I know, but basically you can query the metadata service on AWS and it will give you all the creds that you asked it to. And I was able to show AWS that, yeah, you have these rules, they're great, but like, you're only looking for the decimal representation of the IP. So they ended up fixing it. They gave us kudos on their websites when they fixed it and everything else. So that was a proud moment for like all of us that found this, because at the end of the day, it's curiosity. It's just not stopping there, not going, okay, we're gonna fix this. But yeah, but what if, right? And you gotta keep asking those questions. You gotta keep going asking that. What if, try something new, try. If it didn't work, I go back to work, right? That's a lot of work. So yeah, that's a pretty fun story now. Is that the next one?
CVE jackpot.
This CVE jackpot. Again, a pen test. It's just like a reservation system for hotels. Or maybe it was a learning system, like a learning management system. I forget what it was, but we ended up finding couple of cross-site scripting bugs in the service, which you can steal session tokens, you can do all kinds of stuff, right? You can hook into the browser and do all kinds of really funky stuff with that. So I found out pretty quickly that they were just using this PHP script that they had bought online. They had paid like $70 for this PHP script, and they kind of put their logos on it and everything else. So when you see that, it's not the client that you're working for, so you put in a CVE, which is a common vulnerability to incorporation. Yeah. So there was 4 or 5 in this script, but then when I went on their website to find out who they were, I noticed that they were selling the same script for car reservations and like all kinds of stuff. They had 70 different products using the same script, just doing tiny different little things. So if you think about it, the way CVE works, you've got 5 CVs in one of the scripts, there's 70 scripts. You go, well, if those CVs are in those 70 scripts, well, that's hundreds, right? How am I gonna be able to submit all these CVEs, right? And then, better than that, like, this was a time-limited test, so there may be more there. So we basically started poking. The best part of this whole project was that they actually let you spin up a demo, just so you could see it. So you didn't even have to buy the script, you just spin up the demo, pen test it, and then hit all the stuff to understand. I think we ended up with, when we quit, we ended up with 150, 170 CVEs through the whole group, and I shared the whole thing with the Atlantic Cybersecurity Collective. We had a conference and we sat down in a workshop and people started poking at it, and I showed them how to submit CVs and everything else, and a whole bunch of students can now put CVs on their resumes. I think there's still maybe some out there if you're interested in poking around. Come see me. Again, curiosity, right? Going a little bit further.
Costly creds.
Costly creds. I looked this morning because it took me a couple of times to try. Oh, yes. So, again, a huge industry had just bought I think it was 300 security cameras to all around their infrastructure. It's something that was compliance. They needed to do that to look at things and go in there to pen test. Start poking around, ask them, are the security cameras in scope? And it wasn't really clear in the rules of engagements. And right away say, yeah, absolutely, we just put those in. Started poking at them, and the first one that I hit, I logged into it with admin. Second one I logged to it with admin. This was anywhere in the network. You could have done that in the lobby, you could have done that anywhere. So we quickly realized that they had 300 cameras in their environment with default threats that anyone could figure out and go and look. So first thing you do is you go to the manufacturer and be like, hey, this is not acceptable. The manufacturer said, well, that's not the contract. I think they quoted 6 figures to go in and change all the creds on their security cameras, if I'm not mistaken. And you gotta check your contracts. This is why secure by default, secure by design is very important. We shouldn't even have admin, default credentials. It should be as soon as you put it in, you need to type one in. I mean, in this case, probably the manufacturer would have put in their admin anyways, but never. Maybe they would have put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they also did not have a script to go in and do this at batch. So third party due diligence, looking at your vendors, going through the process, looking at contracts, extremely important because these are very costly credits. Awesome, 15 minutes. I'll give you one more, and then we can maybe start the discussion. I need some water because I'm Ness has gone wild. All right. One of my first pen testing engagement, like a real paid consulting pen test engagement, and the scope was very vague. We thought that the company should have been secure, they weren't. So we started scanning all these different VLANs that they had and everything else, and I ended up with a Nessus scan of like thousands of pages. And no way, the system got so slow because it was trying to process all this information. Exporting it took minutes and minutes and minutes. And I remember flying back and being at the airport and we're like, all right, I'm just gonna start the report. We didn't even have any automated reports or anything like that. This was mostly copy pasting for your findings. Thank you. And I remember sitting in the airport, I was in Pearson, I think, and opening it up, and I had like a pretty beefy gaming laptop, because we all thought we needed beefy laptops to crack passwords, but at the end of the day, you can just do all that in AWS. And I went to open the file, and I couldn't open it. It kept crashing my browser. I downloaded all kinds of software that probably shouldn't have downloaded, because I just needed to get it done. And like, the Nessus report kept crashing my Adobe, it kept crashing my Chrome, it kept crashing my laptop. I just could not open it. So I had to go back in and find ways to split all the information and everything else. So I just thought that was funny because I wanted to do everything. I wanted to touch every single vulnerabilities, and I learned pretty quickly that you got to bring down that scope. You got to really bring down that scope, and the best way to do that is you start small, and then you build up, and you keep contacting with the client. You're like, all right, we looked at that VLAN. That's very important. We haven't been able to find a whole lot, so let's expand and expand and expand, right? And until you run out of money or time, but don't start doing everything in thousands and thousands of computers and stuff that hasn't been patched forever. I think they had hundreds and hundreds of servers that hadn't been patched. I mean, listen, we completely owned it, but trying to build that report was, my laptop was just on fire. One more, any questions, any comments? Anybody want to come up and tell a story? No? Lobby level takeover. You remember, what was it? Under the Hoodie, Rapid7 marketing campaign was Under the Hoodie. They had these little videos of people with their hoods up, it was dark, and was like very ominous music. And this one stayed with me for a long time. Where a guy was saying he went into a bank, plugged into the lobby, and completely owned them by the time they went to pick them up. So I was at this huge telco, and they completely forgot that I was supposed to show up that day. Completely forgot that I was there. So I was sitting in the lobby, and I saw a network jack next to me, and I thought, hey, what the heck, Pendesk has started. Just because they hadn't given me a room to start. Like we agreed it was going to start at 9 o'clock on Monday morning. Plug into the network by 10:30. After running responder and getting a ton of hashes, I was happy I had my beefy gaming laptop that time. Let's just say that by the time they picked me up at 10:30 or 11 o'clock, I had told them even been access to their own environment already sitting in the lobby just because I plugged into the network. That was shock to them, but at the end of the day, you have a big enough Active Directory installation, and I think it was Dark Knight Diaries the other day I was listening to, and I was shaking my head in agreeing where he was saying, what one of the guys was saying, people think that you go there to start your scan, you start everything, but any good pen tester will tell you if it's an AD, you plug in, you start responder, and you wait. And you just let it run all day. What it does is it grabs and it responds to anything that has no DNS entry, a share that doesn't exist anymore, a computer that doesn't exist anymore. If anybody tries to access that, you go, oh, it's me. And then the computer or the person sends you their hashes right away. And in an AD domain, you don't even have to crack it. You can just use that hash, pass it, and it'll think that you're them. So Responder is very powerful. It uses, Evans, is this still on by default? LMNR? Still on by default. Yeah. So yeah, owning a company before the person that you're supposed to meet is going to walk up to you and pick you up. Yeah, so 10 minutes? Oh, wow. I'm sweating up here. I'm not feeling good. I'm usually more entertaining than this. I'm just like sick today. Let's do one more. I gotta save some for the panel this afternoon. Shockingly abandoned. I haven't done a lot of IoT hacking. We got this contract to hack, or not to hack, but do a pen test, to do a security assessment on a taser. Yes, that taser. And scheduling this was a nightmare because it was a weapon. I needed to have a handler to go in, and the handler just wasn't there, sitting on vacation, all kinds of. It took like 2.5 months maybe to schedule this. Finally got it all scheduled. I was all excited. I took that time to read all the books I could on IoT hacking, and I had all my fancy hack finder and everything else. There's not a whole lot you can do, but in this case, we couldn't look at the firmware or anything, but we could intercept the traffic. And I think the worst thing we did was intercept the traffic and said, yeah, I saw that you said that the taser was fired, and then it didn't get to the right people, so they wouldn't even know that the taser had been fired, which is, again, compliance, right? But anyways, all that scheduling nightmare. I get there, I meet my handler, walk me into a room, there's a taser, there's the other 2 devices that you were gonna do because there were more devices. It was, all right, you can email me in my room. And left me there all day by myself with the taser. So it took us 2.5 months to schedule this test because they didn't want to leave me alone. I wasn't to be trusted with this thing, and didn't even show me how it worked. He just go, there it is, see ya, and left. When you talk about checking boxes, this was checking boxes. I'm proud to say I didn't tase myself. I told this story to an RCMP neighbor of mine, and he was like, oh, that's funny, I just came back from Montreal, and we were testing tasers. It was like, testing? It was like, yeah, I got tased like 5 times. Apparently RCMP like to tase themselves. Like, I guess it makes sense. I'm just happy I'm in this field, not that, for various reasons. Anybody saw games that Dave, what was that? Anybody saw the games that Dave played?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody seen games that they forgot existed?
Yeah.
I think we got time for, there's a bunch in there, like there's so many, so many. I also would like to get good feedback afterwards, good or bad, just let me know, because I want to know if I want to do this again. There's candy in there too, chocolates. Again, huge, and this is one of the stories that I'm going to talk about at the panel this afternoon, Chris, but it's just a tiny part of it. Long story short, we were hired to do an assessment on a new POS device for like a retail shop across Canada. Flew everywhere to go into the shops and look at different things. And I'll tell the story at the panel, I'll leave it, but we were supposed to do a physical pet test, but some of the stuff that we found right away scared the crap out of HR and said, like, we can't put our employees through this. We just can't, because you're just going to own them and they're not going to feel good about themselves. But instead, we did a physical walkthrough. They were so proud of their new. This was a while ago. It was like 4K security camera. And I was like, they could see everything. They were so proud of this. It was recording like 2 hours worth, 2 years worth of data. They had so much storage and everything else, and they were also PCI compliant because they were talking a lot of PII, a lot of data, and everything else. And I think some of you know where this is going. I'm walking to the store and they're talking about their cameras and everything else. And I look at the camera and I look at where it's pointing, and it's pointing straight on a table that has like 5 cash registers that people are literally typing in people's personal information. They're typing in their date of birth, their social insurance number, they're typing in their credit card numbers, they're typing in everything. And they're recording all of this and keeping it for 2 years in 4K video. I don't know how much it cost them, but they had to change. This was the layout in every single retail store across Canada, from St. John's, Newfoundland to Jordan, BC. They had like 30, 40 stores, and they had to go in every single store and completely change their cameras. Or, I don't know, maybe they put it to 480. They should have fixed it because it was on the report. I don't know what up here is. It's just like dumb. All right. Yes.
So I have a question back to the desk well then. When you went in there, you saw that, were you actually responsible for helping with remediation efforts as well?
No. In this case, when you're doing this, and that's a very good question. And one of them in there is basically going through an audit with a cybersecurity researcher, a cybersecurity auditor that was auditing the company I was working with, and was giving findings and then telling them, oh, we can fix that. You can't do that. One other thing that is very, very important for us when you're as a consultant is you give recommendations. If they want to know if somebody can help them fix it because they don't know anybody in the industry, then you make sure that it's your ethics and it's your morals and your values, and you got to make sure that it is very clear that whoever you recommend, you're not getting a kickback from them. You're not getting contracts because you're doing them. But for a big company, I've seen salespeople ask for the pen test report, and I said, no. Like, you will not see my pen test report. That is not okay. Because then they can turn around with like, oh, you need this, we can sell that to you. And then all of a sudden, your integrity completely goes out the window.
So follow up on that, when you're on the other side as the person remediating, how do you set expectations? You get 10,000 vulnerabilities for remediating. How do you tell them, listen, this is going to be 500-600 hours? How do you do that?
One of the things that I do is when I give a pen test report, and it's pretty big, I also give them a spreadsheet, which is basically like a mini risk register if you want, and it lays out the recommendations and everything else, and then there's tables that says remediate by priority, who's responsible for it, and everything else. So it's kind of built for them already. It's a great tool that I use anyways because I pop all my vulnerabilities in that spreadsheet first, and then I use that spreadsheet to create my report. So that's one of the tools you can give them. But yeah, I mean, it all depends. Like even the recommendations, you got to make sure that you tell them these are my recommendations. I don't understand what's going on in your network more than the 20, 30, 40, 60 hours that I was in there. You know your environment better. Maybe my recommendation makes no sense. Yes.
This is about Tony Stark's pool. I'm just curious, what do you think? Why do you think it was taking off showdown the next day? Do you think that was like?
Oh, they fixed it.
That?
Yeah.
Did you tell them? No.
Yes.
Oh, you told them. Sorry, I missed that part.
Sorry. Yeah, I didn't go to them directly. I was scared. Yeah, I scared.
Yes.
Yeah, I was scared shitless. To be honest, like this was big enough that I was legally afraid of what could happen.
Right.
So I went to a whole bunch of my trusted mentors and people that I've known in the industry, and, like through back channels and all that stuff. And we got rid of that in space right away.
Cool. Thanks.
What?
They're all great stories born out of your 25 years of experience for new people just getting started, maybe with imposter syndrome. Can you tell one of your early stories, or perhaps one that went forward?
Well, yeah, I think the vulnerability scan that had 1,000 findings, like, to why can't I remember it?
Not even Connor.
Connor, there you go. I knew that. Just like Connor said, right? You got to set expectations, and I mean, going in, you're not going to get a lot of contracts if you show up with 10,000 vulnerabilities every single time. Like, go with the low hanging fruit. Work with a mentor. One of the things that I do some pen testing on the side sometimes and whatnot. And one of the things I do is I take students that I see they're doing really well, and I tell them like, hey, this is a 40-hour engagement. Can you give me 5 hours? Tell me, take 5 hours, go scan, enumerate. Tell me what you would do next. And if you tell me what they would do next and it makes sense, then I go like, oh, here's 10 hours, do it. And then what would you do next? And then and I found 2 or 3 like really, really solid people that can help out by just giving them little chunks. And maybe that's one way for a beginner to start. Just go see some of your peers and everything else. And like, hey, I'll work for free. I just want to touch something real, right? A lot of clients will have problems with that, but I mean, we need to build up our talent pool. Like, we're not doing great. Everybody who's a senior resource is completely maxed out. They don't have time to mentor. They don't have time to help people out. We would love. I've taken students in the past, not out of the company I work with now, but in the past, and some people who were working with me there. And unfortunately, we just couldn't give the support that we wanted to give to this student who was an intern, who was just a thirst for knowledge, just wanted to learn. We just didn't have the cycles. So even as a student, I mean, you're probably happy just to get an internship, but at the same time, like, set expectations, say, this is what I want to learn, right? And ask them to be let loose in systems that don't matter. Good? Awesome. That's not my music, is it? Yeah, Evans.
I have a question about responding. You mentioned running immediately on 18%. Is there any conditions where responder would be
Dangerous. I mean, I think you're asking me a little bit question that you know the answer to. All right. Let's come up here. Come on. No, I mean, systems that are sensitive, right? Systems that may crash when you hit them. Systems that you're not allowed to. It's out of scope, right? You're on a subnet, and there's 50 hosts, and they tell you, well, 10 of them you can't touch. Responder has no. I think you can tell it to not hit certain IPs. Yeah, you can filter, but it would be very dangerous. We all like if you're interested, you can look up what happens when you go outside the rules of engagement, especially on a physical pen test. Ask people out of Ohio that they went on the 3rd floor. They should. Was it Ohio? Columbus? Yeah, it's a coal fire, or maybe that's why Columbus coal fire. Anyways, this company, they said, do not go on the 3rd floor of this courthouse, no matter what. They went on the 3rd floor and they got cuffed, shipped out to prison. They finally got out of it, but it was a whole huge problem for them. Don't go outside your scope. And if you think you're out, if you don't know, task, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was really good. Thank you.
I think I watched the screen looking at it.
Yeah, but that was yeah.
Thanks.